What about this compound? Pause until you've given the right answer. So notice here we have an ester. That functional group there tells us it's an ester. And an ester was formed from an alcohol and a carboxylic acid. And we need to decide which was the alcohol and which was the carboxylic acid, because that's going to affect the naming. So this part here came from the alcohol. Alcohols, remember, have a functional group OH, and the H part got lost during the esterification. Then this part here, which includes that carbonyl group there, that came from the carboxylic acid. And we know that because carboxylic acid has the functional group COOH. And there the CO part is still there. And this OH part joined with that H to form water, which was released during the esterification process. So when we name esters, this here is an ester. When we name an ester, the part that used to be the alcohol becomes the methyl group, so it gets the suffix -il. And the part that used to be the carboxylic acid gets the suffix -ate. So then we simply need to count the number of carbons in each. And here we can see the part that used to be an alcohol has 4 carbons. So that's butyl. Whereas the part that used to be the carboxylic acid has 2 carbons. So that's ethanoate. So we have butyl ethanoate. And there is our correct option A. What about the IUPAC name for this compound? Notice that we have the carbonyl group there, not at the edge, so it's not an aldehyde, but inside the compound. So this is a ketone. And ketones end with the suffix -one, but remember you must also give a number in front of that. So what's the number of that carbon? So we could start numbering over here. Is that right? Or over here? Would that be right? Or over here? So to decide, remember that we must give the functional group the smallest number possible. Also, make sure that the functional group is part of the main chain. And that takes us to the issue of we need to decide what is the main chain. Is that maybe the main chain? Or maybe this one, or perhaps this one. How do we decide between these 3 options? First thing you must make sure is that the functional group has to be part of the main chain. So can you see the last option that I gave is not a possibility because it does not include that carbonyl functional group. So between the other 2 options, how do we decide? Make sure that you choose the one that gives the longest main chain. And then how do we decide on the numbering? We must give the numbering, as I've already said, such that that functional group gets the smallest number. Then we need to decide about the naming of the branch. Well, first of all, which is the branch, which you should already have seen by deciding on the main chain. This could be the branch, or this could be the branch. If you've correctly decided which is the main chain, then you should see, obviously, the other is the branch. And then make sure that you number the carbon that that branch is connected to. So given all of that, are you happy with your answer? So move on. So all of them end in -one, because this is a ketone, although the numbering is different for them. Another thing that's different between them is which is the main chain and how long it is. So we need to make that decision right up front. The main chain has to include the carbonyl group. So it has to be either that, which would give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbons, which is pentan, which is option D, or it could be this one over here, which gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons, which is then hexane. So we can see there is no such option with 8 carbons in one main chain, so we have eliminated this option B. But which is correct between hexane or pentan? We choose the option which gives us the longest main chain, which is obviously hexane, the one shown there. So we have also eliminated option D. So which is correct between A and C? The difference between them is the numbering. So let's look at the 2 options. So let's start first of all numbering from the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then let's take it from the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which of these is correct? We first take a look at the number assigned to the functional group carbon. It's either 5 with the red option or 2 with the blue option. So we can see the blue option is option C and the red option is option A. We choose the one which gives the functional group the smallest possible, which is the blue option. So C is correct. So let's take away the red and let's look at the rest of the naming. We can see here is the branch, 2 carbons in it, so it's an ethyl branch. It's connected to carbon 3, so that's why it's 3-ethyl. Hexane, 2 for that carbon 2 over there where the carbonyl group is attached, 2-one. 3-ethyl hexane 2-one. What about the IUPAC naming for this compound? Again, we have a carbonyl functional group within the compound, so it's again a ketone. It must end in the suffix -one, remembering to give the number of the carbon to which that functional group is attached. Very important in deciding the correct name is you need to decide which is the main branch. So we have various options. It could be that. What's wrong with that option? Then it could be that, or it could be that. How do we decide? First rule, the main chain has to include the functional group. So can you see that this option is not a possibility because it does not include that ketone carbonyl functional group. Second rule, from the other 2 options available, that one or that one, we need to decide which one gives us the longest main chain. Then we need to start numbering that. So this could be number 1, or this could be number 1, or this could be number 1. How do we decide? We must assign the functional group the smallest number possible. So can you see which is number 1 then? So from that you know which number to write over here that the carbonyl group is attached to. Next step, we know that there is an alkyl group. Which is the alkyl group? Is it this or is it this? If you've decided correctly on the main chain, then you'll know which one is the alkyl group. Clearly, this is the carbon in the main chain to which the alkyl group is connected, so you need to know the number of this carbon to name it, and then of course you must give the right number of carbons in that alkyl group. Given all of that, are you happy with the name that you've assigned for this? If so, continue with the movie. Does your answer show here? First decision, which is the main chain? It must include this carbonyl group. And then it must be the longest chain possible within that, which is the one I've shown here. How many carbons does that include? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hept. So we have eliminated B and C. So how do we number this main chain? We could start from this end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or from this end 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which one gives the functional group as having the smaller of the numbers possible? And it is clearly the blue one, so that's why we have 2-one over there. The red one would actually give 6-one, so it's not even A. So we have eliminated A. But let's look at the rest of the naming to see how this is the case. You can see this is the alkyl group. There are 3 carbons in it, so that is propyl, and it's connected to carbon 3, so it's 3-propyl. There we have 3-propyl. Heptane, because there are 7 carbons in the main chain. 2-one, because the carbonyl functional group is connected to the second carbon, or is part of the second carbon. 3-propyl, heptane, 2-one.